thank God tonight we have some powerful men of God here. We're going to share some information that the world needs to hear. Going to share their passion for a better life, for men walking in their authority, men doing a better job and presenting themselves, men lifting up Jesus in their walk and correcting some of the things that's happening in this world. Tonight we have Brother Jackie Wolford and his son Jackie Wolford. We want to welcome them to the show. Thank you for coming out today, sir. Thank you for coming out. And Brother Jackie Wolford and his son going to talk to us tonight about how important it is to have a father figure in your life and have that father and son relationship. And they're going to share some key things tonight, how important it is to have that in your life. And Brother Jackie, we want to give you the floor tonight and just tell us, just be real, real issues that's going on today. Because sometimes we try to hide things. Sometimes we try to cover up things, And we know in this world today, man, there's so much going on. There's so much going on. And it's vitally important that you be a man of God, number one. And number two, to be a man of God in this guy's life. And so we're really, really happy that you're on here today. You're really representing God. So talk to the people tonight about you, how valuable you are to this young man, and some things going on between you and him.
Okay. I appreciate you inviting us out to the show.
Thank you very much.
I was so excited, and the topic was something that I think that needs to be talked about.
Yes.
One of the things that I can say with raising my kids, raising my son, I try to teach him what it is to be a man.
What it is to be a man.
It's important. I try to teach him responsibility, accountability, and just owning who you are. We had a situation come up with my son here, Jackie Jr., a few months ago.
Okay.
Someone texted his phone, and this was someone he did not know. Mm-hmm. And I bring this story up because in today's time, every kid out there has some kind of technical device, whether it's a phone or an iPad or a computer, anything. It's all out there. I mean, and as a parent, we want our kids to have those things. So we got him a nice little iPhone. And someone texted him one day, stranger, out of nowhere, just text him.
Yeah.
And he's texting this person back. Told this person, yes, I live in Charlotte, and even went as far as to send a picture.
My God.
Now, as a parent, I saw a text, I saw this number, I saw something wasn't right. I don't know this person.
Yeah.
So, again, as a parent, I'm very technical savvy myself, so I went onto my account and I looked. Well, he's been texting this person for a while now, and here is a picture that was sent. Mm-hmm. And I saw this by going online and looking at that, and when I saw it, we brought him, me and my wife, we sat him down and we said, son, what's going on?
Okay.
We don't know this person. This person has sent you a picture and a video. You sent them a picture. Do you know them? And it was shocking because we've sat down with all of our kids and we've let them watch shows that talk about kids being abducted, talking about strangers, things like that. So we were disappointed because it was like, what happened? What did we miss? And as a parent, it's frustrating because you want to, you're like, we've shown you this already. This is something that we've already taught you. You knew you should have just said, hey, I don't know you, delete, boom, and that's it. But when that didn't happen, the conversation went further and further with these people.
Yeah.
So we sat them down and we talked with them.
So how do you cover your child from day to day? You can't be with him 24/7, and we know girls are talking to him. There's drugs out there being offered to him. There's just so many things coming at him at different angles.
Right.
And what are some of the approaches or some of the things you can teach him, or how do you approach him about these matters?
Well, as a parent, I try to make sure that he understands. That this is the real world.
Okay.
This is. It's not a cartoon. It's not a game. When we watch those shows together, it's not just so he can be entertained. I want him to know that it's real out here. And the other way, we pray together. As a family, we have our own Bible studies at home.
Okay.
Where they can talk and ask questions. We let them lead those things sometimes. We say, hey, what do you guys want to talk about? And we just look up scriptures and we talk about those different topics. And that's just one of the ways that I keep my family covered because, again, I can't be with him all the time.
That's true.
But
so brother, Brother Jackie Jr., what's some of the scary things you see going on in the street?
Well, the thing that scares me the most is how people are getting killed and how it's really over nothing, whether it's over color or just because somebody didn't give them $5 back.
That's right.
It's scary.
Okay.
I don't want to end up being one of those kids who have been shot or killed in a shooting at school just because of something silly.
So let me ask you a question. How would you respond? How would you conduct yourself if you was approached by a police officer in the street and he was talking aggressive to you? How would you respond?
Well, sure, I would be mad, but I mean, I'm not gonna say anything. I mean, he's the authority. And, like, what can you do against the authority?
You're gonna respect him, right?
Yes, just respect.
Okay. That's great. That's great. That's great. What you say about the young men that's in the street using drugs?
Can you say that again?
The young men in the street using and selling drugs.
How do I approach?
What do you think about it?
Oh, well, I don't really think it's good. I mean, some people do it just to bring in money. Some people just do it just for the fun of it. But, I mean, I don't think it should be done. People have overdosed on some types of drugs and have died or gotten some type of cancer or something.
Yeah, so true, so true. So we see drugs, Brother Jackie. Drugs is a big problem. Men are hiding behind drugs in so many different areas and not coming out talking about it, which creating problems even in a relationship in the home. And that pulls on a relationship when that pulls on a relationship with the mother and the father. It also pulls on a relationship with the children.
That's right. And with that being said, it's an addiction. And in my home, in my family, we've dealt with addiction. And the addiction was alcohol. It was, or drugs. It was many different things. And our kids weren't too subject to them because they were just family members who did not live in a home. But one of the things that we did teach our kids was that these things are wrong. You don't need to smoke. You don't need to drink. These aren't things that you need to do in your life. And as being Christians, they have so many questions about that stuff.
That's true.
Early on they did. To understand it, they would say, well, is it okay that they're smoking? Should Aunt Pam be smoking, or should they be drinking? And
yes.
And as a parent, you're like, whoa, like these are questions that you don't expect sometimes. But hey, again, this is real world, real life here. And as a man, I had to stand up and let them know, no, we do not do these things. And we won't condone these things. And you should not do these things. Because, like you said, in school, there are people that are wanting him to do all kinds of things. And he may not have reached all those things at this point, but someday some kid's going to say, hey, you want to smoke this cigarette, or you want to skip school to do this? I teach him to be a man. I let him know when he messes up, that's not what a man does.
Okay.
Sometimes as kids, they have the first thing they say is, I don't know, when they ask you something. I teach my kids that's not an excuse.
That's right.
I teach them that's not an excuse. Anything you do, you better be ready to stand behind it as a man. So if I make a decision, whenever the hammer falls, if it falls, I need to be able to say, I did that, whether it was wrong or right, that was my decision. And stand on what you believe. Because if I teach them all the time, if a man stands for nothing, he will fall for anything.
Anything.
He'll fall for anything.
So using the Bible, do you instruct them how important it is not only to become a man, but to be disciplined in every area of their life?
Yes, because again, when you're talking to kids and our kids, all they know is church. They know we're going to go to church on Sunday, we're going to go Wednesday. But I teach them using the Bible that it's not just about Sunday and Wednesday. I teach them that it's about your everyday walk with Christ. And that if you're going to be successful in anything you do, you got to put Christ first. You got to put Christ first. And that's something that they understand even at the young age that they are, that they have to pray. We don't just tell them, they say they want good grades, or they want this, they want that, we say, well, you got to pray. You got to ask God to lead you and guide you in those things. He's a AB student or a straight A student most times. And it's not just because he comes home and we do all the work and we sit down with him, we do that. But he knows that it's his responsibility. He knows it's responsibility, and with prayer and with seeking God on these things, he'll have the right direction that he needs to go in to achieve those things.
So, as a father, you say you have 4 children?
5 total.
5 total?
Yes.
So what are some of the sly, wicked things that go in children's mind? Because we know the Bible said we're born in sin and shaped in iniquity.
That's
so
right.
it's there. So, well, in your experience, what are some of the things you would say that probably go through their mind, or maybe they would try or would like to try to do? Because I'm looking at there's so much problem in the school nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
The school front, if they have more problems there, it seems like they do in prison. So there's something that's going on in our young kids' mind. Some of them all of a sudden they get up and go to school and shoot up people,
right?
Kill people. What do you think bring that kind of stuff on?
Well, one of the things that I can speak to is their influences in school. Definitely, no doubt, 100%. And when he first started school, he came home every day with a new curse word, and he wouldn't say it. He would just ask, "Hey, Dad, what does this mean?" And me and my wife would just look at each other like, "Okay, now we gotta."
So, what grade was he in then?
This was first grade.
First grade.
He went right into first grade.
First grade, be cursing.
There was curse words being said. So when he came home, we had to explain these things to him, what they were. We don't say them, all kinds of things like that. And some of the other things that they see in school is not just cursing, but attitude. And that's one of the things that will not fly in my house, attitude. And one of the things that I talk to about with my son and with the boys at our church is this right here, a pound on the chest. And they know when I do this, I'm trying to correct them, because that pound, we've seen it, and it's like saying I'm a man.
So give me an idea of some of the hard spots you have with your children. Sometimes children want to rebel.
That's right.
And sometimes children, they just won't submit. They do for a while, and then they go back to the old nature. What are some of the struggles you have, or maybe some parents that you know?
Well, one of the things is kids wanting to rebel and do their own thing for whatever reason. They seem to think, and we all know this, we can all say this, they seem to think that they have it all figured out. And that's one of the things I've dealt with in my home with my kids, all of them just about.
Okay.
They have that I don't know, that something in their mind that just tells them, I'm right, you're wrong. And my daughter, she's one of them. She's very headstrong, and I love that about her, because I know that she'll be a leader and she won't be a follower.
Okay.
But that same tendency causes her to get in trouble, because she'll, I'll say, hey, I need you to do A, B, and C, just like that. But in her mind, it's, I'll do Z, then I'll get to A, and it's her way. And I have to explain to them, this isn't how life works. One day you're going to get out there, and your teacher, let's talk about now, your teacher tells you, write your name on the paper, fill in this, fill in that. If you don't do that right, your whole test could be 0, because you didn't follow instructions. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the things that I see as a father, kids who don't want to listen because they feel they know it all. And I think that's the plight of most kids. They get to that stage, where they know it all. I'm better than you. You can't tell me. But I don't believe they feel that, but that's just how they act, as if they have it all figured out.
Well, the Bible does talk about children being wiser and wiser every day.
Mm-hmm.
But they're just not wiser on the godly principles.
That's right.
They are wiser. Yeah. So I take my hat off to you for being a great father and all, and raising children as a young man.
Yes.
As a young man.
Thank you.
Share some ideas and thought that what your father placed in you, and I know my father was an alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
Alcoholic was in my family. Alcoholic and drugs was in my family. And so I know that was a big battle I had to fight. So I fought that that problem and the drugs, and by knowing God. I never kicked the habit until I got to know God, and I know He's the only one that can heal. He's the only one that can turn your life around.
That's right.
But I want to thank you for being on the show tonight. I want to thank you and your son. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Make your dad proud of you. Thank you very much, Jackie.
I'm proud of him right now. He's a good kid.
And make sure your father walk in authority. You know the Word of God?
Yes.
Okay, make sure he walk in authority. And we just pray that you continue to be an example before this dying world.
I will.
Because God need men like you. God need men. When you walk up on the crisis in the streets, we don't never know when we need to witness. We need to be Johnny on the spot.
That's right. That's right.
The Bible said, "Be ye also ready, always ready." Yeah. And God has equipped you. Thank you for watching the show tonight. Thank you very much. Our prayer is that men will continue to walk in authority. Men will come out of the cave. Welcome back to the show. The show, Men Walking in Authority. And the topic tonight is forgiveness. We want to welcome Brother John Jennings on the show tonight. Thank you very much for coming out tonight, taking up your time, coming out. You could have been doing anything, but you took the time to come out, and we thank you for it.
And thank you for having me here tonight.
Yes, sir. You're really welcome. That topic of forgiveness, man, that's a big topic. We were going to look at how it's a big struggle out in the street, and how men struggle to even first to forgive themselves, and you know, and forgive those that hurt them, and you know, before we come to God, we have to forgive, and if we don't forgive, it works more against us than it does the other person.
Yes.
So we're going to invite Brother John tonight to share on forgiveness and how important it is. Brother John.
Well, thank you again for the opportunity to be here tonight. And forgiveness is something that I've struggled with for a long time in my life. Early on, before I came to know who God was or invited God into my life, I felt like I was the head of my life, and I felt like I didn't have to forgive anybody because of the lifestyle that I lived. It was only until God utilized certain things in my life to bring me down to a point where I had to understand what forgiveness was.
Okay.
There's a lot of hurt that goes along with forgiveness. We as men were built like that. It's not as easy for us to say, I forgive you, as men. And I dealt with that. I had a son, my only biological son, was gunned down by one of his best friends. At that time, I hadn't been a real father in his life, so I was away. I was incarcerated, had been locked up, and I left the only son that I knew out here to fend for himself in a world of the unknown.
My God.
In that happening, he was killed by some of his so-called friends. And upon me getting out of prison, I had to deal with that. Being incarcerated, I wasn't allowed to come home for his homegoing service. I wasn't allowed to be a part of all of that. And all of that caused me to build up a lot of hatred on the inside. Very difficult for me to understand what forgiveness was at that point. However, I was raised in a Christian family, and all of my family, my aunts and my mom, and they understood the art of God and God being able to provide forgiveness in the heart. And that's all I could hear from them. When I went to them, how do I handle this? They trust in the Lord. How do I handle this? Trust in the Lord. But I really didn't want to hear that because I had a lot of hurt built up. And so it was only until I got out of prison, I came home to understand that I had to find a way of forgiveness. So
and it's hard.
Very hard.
It's very hard because the mind have a tendency to remember what someone did to you. Remember, sometimes we go through situations and trials and tribulations that we shouldn't go through, and we sometimes we treat it unfair.
Exactly.
So I truly understand what you're saying. Go right ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, and they wouldn't allow me to come home for the homegoing service, so the hatred built up, and it continued to build for this individual. And then when I got out of prison, of course, I had to deal with that. I didn't want to come back to North Carolina. I was in the state of South Carolina at that time, and I just felt like it was too much hurt for me to come back here and face that. Little did I know there was a plan in place that put there by God. Yes. And so I wound up coming back to North Carolina. They caught the culprit that killed my son, and I was invited to come to the courtroom. And in that courtroom, there was about 200 people, about 100 on each side of the courtroom. And I was invited at the end of the sentencing program, right before the sentencing, to come forward and speak by the prosecutor. And in my heart, I had to be proud of that. I had discovered God had gotten saved. And God had shared that with me on the way up here, that I must find forgiveness in my heart if I wanted him to forgive me for the man that killed my son.
That is so true.
And so
I would think that's a huge struggle. That's a huge struggle.
A huge struggle, and one that I dealt with, knowing that all of my family felt the opposite. And so when I got there, I was invited to come up and speak. And God shared with me, as I was going up to speak to this man, to let him know that I forgave him, God forgave him, and that he must forgive himself. Because after all, my son was his best friend that he had killed. And it was difficult for him. No one understood that, especially my family, and they wanted him to get the death penalty, which he was being faced with.
Yes.
Well, I was against the death penalty, always have been. And so when I stood there, I looked at him and I shared with him what God shared with me. Prior to doing that, I had to talk to God. I had to find out, though, how can I forgive this man, God? When he killed my only son, the only son that I had in this world, my only biological son. And the word that God gave me was, I too gave up the only son that I had, that you and a whole world of sinners might have an eternal life. And at that point in time, I knew then if God did that for me,
for you,
then I wouldn't have no other choice but to go up and do that for this